Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Two Opinionated. I'm so excited today. I have actor Alexander Siddig with me. So welcome, Alexander.
Thank you.
I can call you Sid if you want.
You get to call me whatever you like, but Sid works. Sid's my
my
actual name. So that's kind of what I've always been called since I was a kid. Alexander came along knocking on the door in the 90s sometime when I decided to change my name.
Well, that happens a lot when you go into acting. Kind of change that. I had read an article years ago, and during the article, it was calling you Sid, and I was thinking, well, that's unusual to be called, a shorter version of your last name.
Yeah.
But then I learned that there was a reason.
Yeah, all the kids at school when I was a kid, they couldn't say Siddig, and they didn't even want it. They weren't interested. So they
weren't even trying.
Yeah, exactly. They were the guys who shortened it to Sid. And I remember when I was about 7 or 8, I used to burst into tears a lot. So I actually got the nickname Sogs from Soggy. So I was either Sid or Sogs, depending on who you talk to.
Does anybody still call you that?
No. I don't think anyone knows that was my nickname at school.
Well, it's out there now. So we've been watching Foundation. I was really happy that you showed up on it. That show is so good.
Me too. I made an exception with that show because I now watch it. If I'm in the show, I don't watch it.
Right.
Generally, it's wrecked for me. But I was in it so briefly in that first episode that I just was hooked. And now I wait for every Friday for that show to come out because
us too.
It is fantastic. If I dare say so myself about a show I'm in,
especially for a TV show.
Absolutely, absolutely. And how David Goyer has managed to thread all those, anyone who's read the Asimov novel, thread all those disparate elements together over 12,000 year period or something crazy like that. Huge achievement, really spectacular.
It would be really easy to get lost, but you don't.
No, you don't. I love it. I recommend it to anyone who's like on the fence. Muscle through the first episode, be ready for some complexity, and go jam. Enjoy that show.
Yeah, put the phone down. You got to pay attention.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, you cannot leave your brain in the kitchen when you come to watch that show. You have to watch it with your brain in your head, and then you'll enjoy it.
Then you'll enjoy it. Did you read any of the books growing up?
I did when I was about 22, and I couldn't make it through. I found it way too dense and complicated.
Yes.
And generally Asimov is pretty dense and complicated. He's not like Orson Scott Card or someone who I love, who writes easy, flowing science fiction.
Right.
This stuff is, tough, but it's early 20th century, so it was written a long time ago when people were writing dense, complicated stuff. So yeah, he's got a good excuse.
Well, I do like that the show seems to be weaving in some of the robotic stuff, which is kind of neat. I think
and the world they've created, that those guys, the producers and the illustrators and all the design team have created is beautiful. I mean, the effects, everything is fantastic. It's amazing world building exercise. Really lovely.
So yeah, it's been. You're always apprehensive when they kind of start adapting one of those, especially science fiction books. But really well done.
Yeah. No one, only David Goyer could do that. He's got the kind of crazy, intelligent mind that can put that sort of thing together. And he did, thank goodness for us, because we've got a treat. And now he's got hopefully 8 years of it.
Yeah, right. Maybe he could explain the debt ceiling issue we were talking about.
You need to get David on the show. You need to come and talk to him because he will blow your minds.
I'm not sure I can keep up with him.
Yeah, he's not a normal mortal. He is not.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we had John Billingsley and Robert Picardo have both been on the show.
I love those guys.
I'll get this out of the way because they both kind of put their claim in for best Star Trek Doctor. So
You know what? They're both the best Star Trek Doctor. They are both the best Star Trek Doctor. I come in a lowly 4th or 5th after Bones and Crusher and everybody else.
I don't believe that is true, but I will say that Robert said that's exactly what you would say. Because I asked him, I was like, will he trash talk? And he's like, no.
I could trash talk a little bit. Robert, I'm not sure he qualifies as a doctor. He is, but he isn't because he's a program.
That's right.
So maybe he is not quite. He doesn't quite make it. I think maybe
you might pass him on a technicality.
You never know. I might just win that on it. Yeah, a TKO.
That's pretty great. That's pretty great. It's been so fun for us because it just kind of happened. And I'm such a Star Trek fan. I was like, all the doctors are coming on. I got to call Gates McFadden, get her to come by.
Oh, she's great. She's lovely too. My goodness, what a stunner. Gates is one of the most amazing people who you don't realize does enormous things behind this, in her private time. Nothing to do with acting, all charitable work. She's one of the world's doers. The world is divided into doers and passengers. And I'm a passenger. Gates is an absolute doer. She's a driver.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's terrific. I was lucky enough. We were friends with Brent Spiner's assistant. So we were at a show visiting her, which was aggravating him to death because we were there to see her. We wanted to talk to him, but we could tell it was bugging him. So we were talking with her. But Gates McFadden was right beside us. So you could really see how warm and just caring, and she's just very giving.
Absolutely. And if I dare say it, drop dead gorgeous for a married man. I've got to be
very, very attractive woman. Yeah. Absolutely. Like much, she looked it on screen, but when you're right beside her, you're like, oh, okay. Wow.
Something. Yeah. I had a crush on her when I was, in my early 20s when I was watching that show, because I didn't know, I loved the original series, but like a lot of people, I had to watch it when I was a kid. And when you watch stuff when you're a kid, it just comes and goes and you like it and you enjoy it. But when I became an adult, I was introduced to the next generation, and I was watching it in my apartment in London back in the day. And I would go down with my friend, Colin, down to the local store, the Blockbusters, which was a video rental store for kids now who don't know what that means. You could actually rent videos. And we returned them the next day, and you'd watch 2 episodes back to back. And so I would always get 2 videos. We weren't allowed more than 2. Remember, I don't know if you remember, there was always a limit on how many episodes you could get from a single show. Yep. So we'd get 2. I'd watch that. I loved the character of Q. He was just my favorite. Everything he did, anything that was good with Q in it, I really enjoyed. And I had a little secret celeb crush on Gates McFadden, and it was totally weird for me. Jelly knee time when I actually met her several years later, because I happened to luck out and win the actors lottery and get a job on Deep Space Nine. Yeah,
I know, amazing. And that was pretty early in your career.
Yeah,
right?
It was.
Am I crazy? You did like a Lawrence of Arabia sequel.
Yeah, I did. With Ralph Fiennes, the great Ralph Fiennes. It was his first proper vehicle, his first proper movie, and obviously mine. And we played T. Lawrence and Faisal in a sequel to Lawrence of Arabia, which was all about the politics at the Treaty of Versailles in Paris, and
very nice.
All the horse trading that went on in order to see if we could see who could rob the Arabs of their rightful lands, which kind of happened. Everybody redrew the maps that were originally done kind of casually by someone else a few years earlier.
How did you go from that to Deep Space Nine? Was that just normal audition, or did somebody see you and say, well, we'd like you to try out for this?
I was seen. Okay. I didn't know it at the time. I was called to do my agent called me and said, how do you like to do Star Trek? And I was like, cool. Yeah, I'd love to go. And so she set up an interview for me to do Star Trek. I didn't know then it was a series. I just thought it was going to be an episode of The Next Generation.
Right.
Because they don't tell you.
Were you disappointed?
I was not. So they called me and I went in and I had very few lines. So all I had to say was like, no, I think. But so I went in and I delivered my no, and they called back and said, why don't you come out to America and do that again in front of all the producers? So I went to America on the first time I'd ever traveled premium economy. Nice. And so I was like loving life on the airplane all the way over. And then I got in front of like all, 15 or 20 producers from the studio and all that people that associated with them, and had to deliver my line again in front of all of them. And all of them were like, this is amazing. This is the best no I've ever heard. Was that the best no you ever heard? Yes, that was the best no we've ever heard. And so I got the job. And there was a whole line of other guys, actors outside the door on chairs waiting to go in, And the casting director, Judy Lowry, came out and was like, you know what, guys, thank you. We're not going to need you, but thanks for turning up. And then they said, are you looking forward to coming to America? And I was like, gulp, yep. And the following Thursday, I was on a plane. I went back home, packed my bags, and came back immediately. Wow. It was a crazy, crazy time.
When you first got that job, were you already thinking 7 seasons? Or was that too early? Because Next Generation was kind of the only.
The tradition of getting 7 seasons had not been established. Yeah. I mean, the Next Generation hadn't even gone 7 seasons.
They haven't got there yet.
No, we were concurrent with them. I think they were in their 3rd season or something like that, maybe 4th season. And so that tradition of knowing that we were going to go all the way had not been established. So every season we were like on tenterhooks going, are we cancelled? Because no one's watching the show. Well, a lot of people were actually watching the show, but by the standards of the Next Generation, we were getting half their numbers.
Right.
And it was, so we were wondering whether, we did not know the studio had already decided that we were going to go 7 seasons. So that was exciting, always to be wondering whether we're going to go another season. So it was quite something. It was huge for a 26-year-old kid. Landed in the States and Los Angeles and Paramount Studios, and all those romantic things were just happening to me. And I remember going into a car showroom and picking out a green Chrysler Baron and going, I'll have that car, and they go, okay, here's cash. And I just was like, wow, I just
very nice.
So and then we drove that thing to Las Vegas, and it was fantastic. It was great. Romantic times, really romantic.
That's pretty great. A lot of people say Deep Space Nine was the best Star Trek.
I think that has evolved. I think that is, at the time, people weren't sure because it was so different to
very different.
The Next Generation, and obviously the original show. And it was just, people just weren't ready for a serialized show, which didn't end at the end of an hour. You had to keep watching to figure out what these characters were doing and how the story would evolve. And I think that was weird for people at that time. There were very few TV shows that ever did that. And it ended up being the thing that was most prophetic about the show, because now everything is like that. And people really enjoy it now. I'm really heartened to hear. So it became, it's a slow grow, as I like to refer to some shows.
I think that's fair. I know it was one, along with Next Generation, when I was in college, it was one of the few shows that we would all gather around to watch. Good. We love to get together and watch, which is difficult, when you're 20, 21, you're just sitting still for an hour in a group of other 20, 21-year-olds.
Hello.
Yeah,
absolutely. At that age, at college, when you could be out having a beer and maybe finding a date, that is a big sacrifice.
Yeah. Obviously, we chose the sacrifice. It wasn't because we couldn't find a date.
Of course.
So I jumped way ahead. I always like to start with, how did you get into entertainment? What made you want to become an actor?
I didn't. I wanted to be a director, and
nice.
All my energy was focused on that. Yes. And I was in love with opera, weirdly. And that was the thing. As a teenager, I would in my room, I would draw opera sets, you know, the designs for the stage of every opera that I'd seen. And
unusual.
Really weird. And I went to see a lot of opera, and I loved classical music, and I was immersed in that world and understood the singers and had my favorites. And then that evolved to stage, because as I learned that stage was also an option. And so I went to acting school to learn how to direct, because there was no school for directing at that time. And to do that, you had to go to immerse yourself in that world. Acting school seemed like the logical conclusion. So I went to acting school to just surround myself with actors and learn how they work, what their process was, and understand how plays worked and they were constructed and all that stuff that you learn at acting school, which was really, really valuable. I had an amazing time at a school called Lambda in London. And that was 3 years of really just untouched heaven for me, because I was just surrounded by all like-minded people who just, you know, indulged in conversations about things that mean nothing to anyone else, but meant everything to us. And it was just fantastic. So I came out and went straight into directing, and formed a company, and we directed we put on a bunch of shows in London at little fringe venues. And then out of the blue, I got this call from a producer, or a casting director actually, who said, "Hi, my name was Siddig Al-Fadil at that time, and it still is, but I have a stage name as my cover. So are you Siddig Al-Fadil?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." "Did you go to Lambda?" I was like, "Yes, I did." "You left like 3 years ago, right?" And I was like, "Yep, that's me. You haven't got the wrong person." And they went, "We're doing a TV show, and we need a Muslim actor to go to Mecca, because no one else is allowed in Mecca apart from Muslims. And your name is Muslim, so they will not question you. Would you like to come and audition for this TV show?" So I went to audition for this TV show in London, a very fancy company called Carnival Films at the time, who were doing Jeeves and Wooster and Poirot and all kinds of shows that were really big in England. And I met one other kid outside who was sitting on a chair waiting to go in as well. And he was like, "Oh, no, I just saw an advert in the paper, and I came along, so they're looking for an actor." And I was like, "You are responding to an advert in the newspaper? And I'm actually a trained actor. Oh my God, I'm going to get this job." And I got the job. And it was 6 months of, you know, hell, actually, going to Mecca, and really difficult, really, really unpleasant. And that got me going, and they were paying me $1,000 an episode. And so I was like, wow, I'm not being paid to direct any at all. What am I going to do? This is a no-brainer. So, and then I got the Lawrence After Arabia, and then I got Star Trek. So that was how I began. Just fell into it, failed upwards, as my son likes to say.
Have you had a chance to go back and do directing?
I did a bit of directing on Star Trek, which I kind of enjoyed, and it wasn't the sort of directing I was used to, because on stage, theatre directing is a much more collaborative experience, and from a benign dictatorial point of view. So you're the kind of benign dictator, kind of controls everything, but you collaborate with the actors, and you build performances, and you really search the text for nuggets of information. And working on TV as a director on TV, especially for one of the big studios, you really have to deliver sort of 3 shots for every scene. And that is a master, a big wide shot of the whole scene, and then mid shots, pretty much what we're looking at now, and then a close up, which is sort of here. And you have to deliver that for every line. And it's kind of, sort of, you know, it wasn't very creative.
It sounds kind of tedious a little bit.
It's pretty tough. I mean, you spend your day answering a lot of questions, you know, should this be red or should this be green? And you're like, green, you know, those sort of things all day. Yeah. And I think at the time I was frustrated with that. So I sort of stopped doing it. And I've since sort of got my head around it, and I quite like the idea again. So I might do it again.
Yeah, that would be pretty good. When you were directing back in the day, did you also write?
No.
Okay.
I can't write. Some people are blessed with the ability to write. I cannot do that. I cannot come up with poetic dialogue in the middle of all sorts of extraordinary action that develops character in such a way that people become intrigued and fall in love with the person who's speaking. And that is a peculiar talent that I just wish I had. I find it much easier to adapt novels. That's something I can do because you can borrow those ideas from the novelist. But the actual invention of writing is something I appreciate and love, but cannot do.
Can you sing opera?
No. No way can I sing opera. I try sometimes.
Yeah,
I do this with my wife. We have this like date night, as everybody does, which and it developed over COVID, where we would get a little bit tipsy and we would sing karaoke to each other, or pretty much all night. And that would be like every couple of weeks. We go, should we go and do some karaoke? And amazing, on YouTube, you can get any song you ever heard of, and someone has karaoke'd it. You know, someone has done the words. So she would come up with all these crazy songs because we have wildly different taste. And so I'd sing the songs she likes, and then we'd sing, and then occasionally we'd do some kind of romantic, some duets and stuff, like When the Star is Born. Yeah, with Lady Gaga, that song. We did that song too.
Oh yeah, Star is Born. You got to do that one. That's
absolutely. So I recommend it to all married couples, or not married couples. You know, married. Just do some karaoke. It's kind of liberating, just to each other. And then I bought an amp, and I put the amp in our room. So the amp, and we have microphones because that was a kind of birthday present. And so we just had YouTube, microphones, and an amp, and we sang probably terribly, but we thoroughly enjoyed it. And we sang until like 4 o'clock in the morning, and that would be our Saturday night.
Next time you come on, that's what we'll do. We'll sing karaoke.
Yeah, really. You want to lose an audience?
Well, I was going to say, it'll last like 5 minutes because I don't know. I always say that, you know, when we started out, we had no idea what we were doing. We were just terrible. I mean, just constant mistakes. It was just awful. But the more we screwed up, the bigger the audience got.
Wow. And did you screw up live? Did the audience
we never, no, it wasn't live, but we weren't good enough to know how to fix it. So we just posted it. And then it just kept getting bigger. And over time we got better, you know, we're able to do things. And for some reason, people stuck with us. I was like, they're going to leave.
I'm not surprised. I am not surprised, Michael. That makes a lot of sense. I think people love to see the authenticity of screwing up. I did a play once, maybe about 6-7 years ago now, in London, at the Globe Theatre, which is this amazing reproduction theatre of the original Shakespeare Globe. And it has no roof, and the acoustics are amazing, and you're not allowed to have any electric stuff around, no lighting, nothing. So it's just an audience has come to watch pretty much whatever is on, because it's a tourist attraction by itself. And I was doing one of the plays there. And I remember, because I'm terrified of doing plays. I do them every few years, but I still am really terrified of doing them because the amount of concentration you need to go on stage, curtain goes up, and then 2 hours later, you've gone on a journey and you can't cut, you can't retake anything, you've got to keep going. And so I spend my entire day just saying my lines to myself because I'm so frightened of forgetting them on stage. So when I'm shopping in the morning at the grocery store and stuff like that, I'm just going through my lines. And if I forget a line, I start again from the very beginning. So it can take an hour, and I will go all the way back and go, do it again. You forgot a line. Do it again. You forgot a line. And so that's my preoccupation. So it's a horrible experience. It's a horrible existence all day, every day, going through lines. Then one day the thing happened, which I dreaded more than anything, and that is I forgot my lines. We were 4 of us were on stage, and it was me who was leading the scene, and I totally dried. I totally forgot what I had to say next. It just would, and sometimes it just comes to you, you know, a few seconds later. It feels like hours, but the line arrives, and you're like, thank God. Or another actor helps you by going, maybe there's a horse you'd like to talk about, or something. And it's saved. But this occasion, no one could save me. It was my scene. I was the only one going to speak. No one had a cue they could help me with. And it was so bad that you've forgotten that the audience realized, because they start to laugh. And so there's a ripple of laughter as people recognize you've forgotten your lines. And you know what's really interesting about that? And this is why it's relevant to what you were saying about your early shows and screwing up, is that people really enjoyed it. They enjoyed seeing the authenticity of that moment, that was happening, and that I was a real human being who had got completely lost. But once they started laughing, and I immediately relaxed, and all my lines came flooding back, and I was like, right, we're back. Boom, and on we went. But that's, screwing up is authentic. I completely think
that's amazing. Okay. Yeah, I think that's authentic's the key.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you're just honest, because we were very upfront about it. You know, we talk about it on the next episode. It's all the stuff we screwed up last time, and it didn't seem to hurt us.
You know what? I welcome it. I get into trouble because I'm honest in interviews. I did a Game of Thrones for a while, and someone came to me and interviewed me afterwards and asked me some questions, and I said exactly what I thought. And oh boy, was I in trouble. Warner Brothers went ballistic. They rang the journalist and said, are you making this up? You have to retract everything he said and say you made it up. And he was like, no, I'm not making it up. He said that. And it was like, it's a real problem. But I think audiences deserve it. You know, they've been with you every step of the way.
That's right.
Watch your show. The least you can do is be honest about it. And I don't mean be petty. Don't just say nasty things to diss the show. That's not, I want people to watch shows. I like the shows I'm in too. But if someone asks me, you know, you must have earned a fortune or something, and I've got an issue with that, I'll go, no, we did it for free, pretty much, or whatever. But if you don't go out of your way to be nasty, being honest is, people like that, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Had you read the Game of Thrones books, like Song of Ice and Fire?
No. I didn't know. I didn't have enough of a heads up. I hadn't even really watched much of the show. I was one of those people who watched the first few episodes, and I know there are a lot of people like this. And when, you know, the writing's kind of meh, and I don't really dig it, and and then I went back and watched it again, and it suddenly grew on me, and it evolved, and the writing got better, and everything became like, whoa, this is amazing. And then I watched all of it up until the moment I arrived on the show, and then I couldn't watch it
again. You played the character really well. We enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. I've been sticking with poor George Martin since the 90s when he first started writing that series. And I'm still praying for him. Let's finish that up, George.
Yeah. In fact, that when they honored George Martin's plots and story and the arcs that Martin wrote, it was amazing. And then when they decided to do their own thing, and that, like, we're better than this, we don't have to wait for George Martin to come up with another novel, it kind of went off the boil. Yeah, they should have just hung out for George to come up with a new thing and gone, right, we'll wait 2 years. You're not a young spring chicken anymore, George.
Yeah.
If it takes you 2 years to write another season, we will wait. And they didn't. They were like, we can do this. We're good enough.
No, you could kind of see it. The further along it got away from his stuff, the worse it got, in my opinion.
Yeah. And, you know, they killed off Doran Martell. What kind of idiots are they?
Come on. Yeah, that's
terrible. It was the way he was killed. It wasn't, it's always, I'm sour grapes, but it was the way he was killed. He was just surrounded by basically children. And he had a 18-foot bodyguard standing next to him.
Yep.
And these guys got to him somehow. It's like, this guy was a warrior. He may be, in trouble now in a wheelchair, but he used to be a warrior. You're not going to get this knife into him that easily, but hey, you just go with the flow.
I know. Bygones.
Yeah.
Was it difficult when you finished up Deep Space Nine? Was that next role you got after that? Was that kind of difficult going into something new?
Yeah. I mean, there are lots of fantastic actors who have been in Star Trek, who are, stage trained, who are distinguished in their fields, and have really found it hard to get work after Star Trek. Especially back in the day, Star Trek has got a lot of nerd credibility now. But back in the day, it was very uncool. I mean, genuinely uncool. And you had, as a fan, you would have known that. You like, these people aren't going to like the fact that I like Star Trek. They're going to find that uncool, and that's and Trekkies got together because of that. They even had discussions about what they should be called. That's how uncool it was. They became tribal about their uncoolness. No, we're called Trekkers. No, we're called Trekkies. Right. No, who cares? But that was a problem, for a lot of people. And then I know that even now there are discussions with producers about whether or not the Star Trek thing is not good for in terms of my association with a project. So it was difficult, but I was extremely lucky. And I just know that there are a lot of fine actors who never worked again at any serious level after they did Star Trek, which is a shame.
That is a shame. Because by and large, they're very strong actors on all.
Really strong. That was what they wanted. That's how they cast. They cast myself excluded because I was just a whippersnapper. But they cast, Armin Shimmerman, Rene Auberjonois, Avery Brooks on my show, Nana Visitor. These were big guns, on stage, in theater. Nana had been in just about every TV show you'd ever, look at her resume. It's just like she was in everything.
It's crazy.
She's like George Clooney. George Clooney had been in everything for years before he made it in ER. And Nana was like that. In fact, they knew each other really well. They always saw each other on the circuit. And these kind of old pros, I wouldn't say old at the time, but I thought
experienced pros.
Experienced, to be kinder. I married her, so hey.
Yeah.
But it was. I was surrounded by these amazing, effing wonderful actors who taught me everything I knew and held my hand and kept me sane and told me not to go crazy and not let the Hollywood bug get you and not take drugs, basic things that every young actor needs help with. I had that help because,
great.
Relatively speaking, you could afford to do whatever you wanted. I mean, we weren't earning a vast amount on Star Trek, but certainly a lot more than I did before I did Star Trek. I had a weekly paycheck, and and that was really, I think it was like $7,500 when I first did Star Trek. Every episode.
Yeah.
Huge. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me at that stage in my life, that was like, I could do anything I want. I could just go crazy. And I would do crazy things. I would fly friends over from England, on obviously airplanes. I'd give everybody $500. We'd go to Vegas and we go, let's blow this. And we had enormous fun doing crazy stuff like that. But then I had a kid. And everything changed.
Yeah, that happened to all of us.
Everything changed. Yeah, I had to stop doing that crazy stuff.
Yeah. I've reached the grandparent stage.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, well, thank you. We've got 4, and the oldest is 2.5. So they're all very young.
Oh my goodness. How old is your kids must be,
well, so my oldest is 27, and then they go 22, 21, 20.
Wow, you were busy as a youngster. You didn't wait around. You got straight into the machinery of making kids. Yeah.
Well, I will tell you that grandparenting so much better than parenting. Because you can send them home. You get to spoil them. You don't have to worry about any of the repercussions of giving them sugar or whatever. You just send them home.
Absolutely. Parenting is tough. It is tough. Everybody lies. Everybody says it's the most amazing thing in the world, but it is hard. It is really hard.
It's tough. Now, we've been lucky because we've got all the kids, all the grandkids. They're all within 10 minutes of us. They're all right.
Fantastic.
That's pretty rare.
Yeah. And did you get to see them over COVID, or was there?
They were pretty young. One of them wasn't here yet, but the other 3. And we had to see it. During the lockdown, we had to visit them through the door, which was tough. Like the 2 young ones, they were still babies. Not a big deal to them because we hadn't necessarily got the connection yet. But the oldest, he was pretty attached to us, and not being able to come out and hug us and stuff, that was hard. That was hard on us.
Did you have like a 9 to 5 job before during COVID or at that sort of time, like before
I
you
was
started
actually
the podcast?
that is I still do. So my day job, I work in the local hospital system.
Right.
So that was difficult too because we were able to work at home some, but if I went in, you were geared up, because it was you had a lot of COVID floors. So
you were hazmat.
You pretty much you had the hazmat suit on. So I didn't, I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but I visited with patients. That was kind of my role. So I would have to, suit up and it was kind of scary. You weren't too worried about it at first, and then the more it dragged on, you got to see some of the effects on people. It was scary.
Yeah, especially because you would have come up against people who were terrified, and that's a new thing for you. I mean, the fear of getting COVID back in those days, because it was so we didn't know, and it killed people. Yeah. People were on ventilators, and it was like,
it's the worst, just the worst. So the what helped me was, we shut down so that they weren't allowed any visitors. So you had all these people scared to death on a ventilator or maybe getting close to that point, but no visitors. So I was able to go with, an iPad or a phone and do the FaceTime calls.
That's great. That's great, Michael. Yeah, that's fantastic.
So that was my small. No, thank you. That was my small contribution.
Well done.
Yeah. It's I'm sure there's, millions of people that have those type of stories, and it's an emotional,
I think it brought the best out of us, And the other thing that I think it did is it brought like the family unit back together, because we were stuck with each other, and
you really find out if you love each other,
and that's a really good test. It's a really good test, and everybody I talked to has sailed through it, just managed to do it. And I feel terrible for the people who were alone during the whole time.
Me too.
They were the guys that had the heavy lifting to do psychologically.
For sure.
Really difficult.
For sure. Did you pick up a new skill or a talent while you were locked in?
I think I probably did. Not a very common talent. I learned to do what you're doing. I learned to interview people.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you do much better than what I do.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, you would probably attest that interviewing is just listening, and coming up with a question. And I learned to do. We started. A person who used to run my fan club, which has now kind of come back into existence, because I had no understanding of what a fan club was, what was the point of a fan club. But because without having something to do, something to contribute. And we as soon as COVID came, Melissa, Larry, and myself got together, and we said, well, we're going to have Zooms twice a week for the community, anyone who wants to come. And pretty soon we filled up to 100 people on a Tuesday and 100 people on a Friday. And we did 2 hours both days. And I just talked to people about their lives and what they were going through. And we built up a pretty solid community. Yeah. And we did it every Tuesday and every Friday for a year and a half. And we're still doing it, but I'm not there so often. So, because I have to work. But I didn't have a job. So I was just in my, study.
That's so terrific.
It was great because I got to meet all these amazing people. And when we go to conventions, and I don't get to time with people to just say, hey, how are your family? What's your relationship with your mom like? Those sort of questions. And I would ask them deeply personal questions, and it's amazing. Everybody wanted to talk, so they did. And it was really amazing. So I learned about listening.
I love that. Yeah, and that is in my, kind of bumbling through learning this job. That's the number one thing. It's just listen. I tell my wife that all the time. I'm like, if I just shut up, it's usually better.
Yeah. Well, you were already good at it because that was your job as a hospital worker. So that was you'd already honed that. I would say kind of psych therapist.
There's some customer service side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, good.
I can tell you, I know we got to wrap up soon, but I can tell you the best thing that happened to me while I was out, right? So we're good. We've got a good friend that was she acted through the 90s and now she writes, and she had written this terrific audio drama. So we got to be a producer, help her with this audio drama. But there was one scene in it, or one, part of one episode that was based on a story that I told her from the hospital. It involved this older gentleman. So she'd asked, can you act out your part? Just me. I was just being myself, which was terrifying. It's terrifying.
This crazy West Virginian guy.
Yeah, and I was saying pretty much what I said at that time. So you think it wouldn't be any problem. Oh, it was awful. It was awful. But she called the day of, she calls and she said, I found an actor that to play the older gentleman. He wants to do the read through with you. I was like, okay. I was like, that might help me. Having somebody read the lines, that might help me. Until we get on Zoom and opposite me, Ed Asner.
Oh,
that's
my
what
goodness.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, he was great. I was not as great.
Wow, what a cool experience. Awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
What an awesome surprise. That is
just because I just assumed it was just somebody she knew. And it was,
did she know him? Were they friends already?
They were not. She had I guess had been, we got to help, the podcast, we talked to so many people, we got to help cast a lot of it. But there was a few parts we just couldn't find somebody that's right for the role. So she put that out there and he applied for it.
Wow. What the? That's
like you're going to say no. There's a few people out there. If they apply, you're like, okay.
Oh, we have to go find this piece of recording now. Everybody has to go find this drama.
Well, it's coming out. We haven't put it out yet. It's coming. Probably in the next few weeks we'll have
that's fantastic.
Have it out. What you don't know about those things, and any show, it takes so much longer than you think.
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
A lot of work.
This entertainment baloney, it's a lot of work.
I was supposed to tell you, we interviewed David Mazouz from Gotham, and he said tell you.
Oh, David. Yeah.
He's a terrific guy.
Isn't he? And for so much talent to be in someone so young. I mean, he's probably a little older now, but he was still a teenager. And he's just so talented. I used to just love watching him as I was standing opposite him doing scenes, because I just never seen that kind of talent bundled into such a young head. This isn't just accidental acting, which kids can do. Kids, you pick a kid off the street, they can act accidentally well. They can be incredibly good, very authentic. We were talking about it earlier. But David had technique. He had a technical side which was way beyond his years, and made he was just great in that show. I loved it. And he had a wonderful mom because he's a kid, so his mom's always there, and his dogs are always there because he's a kid, so his dogs are there. I mean, it's crazy.
We loved his mother. She set up the interview, and he did it from his dorm room at college. So when it came on, it was kind of funny because he's sitting in that little tiny dorm room.
Yeah. Oh, that is so great. That is so great. Yeah. Most actors, some actors will come with entourages. David's was a little unusual. It's my mom and my dog. Make sure they're well looked after. They were really cute. Really, really, really cute family. Really gorgeous.
Yeah, that's terrific.
I really enjoyed Gotham. Yeah, Gotham was fun. I look back fondly at those times.
Did you go back and read any of the Batman comic books? Learn about your character.
I never read anything. I never do, because someone has made the effort to cast me. I mean, if it's a real human being, I have to read because you just need to know that completely wrong is a really bad idea. But when it's a fictional human being, the writers, you trust them. You go, okay, you've written this. I'm going to have to say these lines whether I like it or not. So I'm just going to go with what you've gone with. And I read a bit on Wikipedia, and I'd seen Liam Neeson do Ra's al Ghul. And I kind of vaguely understood that sort of stuff. And I thought, well, I've got an opportunity to help set the record straight here, because Ra's al Ghul is probably more like me looking and in terms of his fictional heritage then Liam Neeson, who's a fantastic actor, don't get me wrong, although he's doing way too many action movies for a 70-year-old, but we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, he's going to pay for that one day. He's going to wake up very sore.
Yeah, absolutely. It's he's not 70 yet, I think. He might be close to that. But I got a chance to help, historically get a guy in there who has some of the more unusual heritage that I think this character probably had. And I read that his name was half Hebrew and half Arabic, and I was off and running. I was like, okay, we can do this.
Great. Yeah.
It was great fun. I would have liked to have had a lot more scenes with David, with the young Batman, because the Bat Boy pre-Batman, because I think that's where Ra's really did his work, was really in shaping Batman and making sure that he wasn't too good, because you can be too good. And to give him some edge and to give him some danger. I think that's probably his job. Like him or love him, that's what he kind of did. But they went with the actual show took me in another direction with that beautiful actress that I spent a lot of time working with. Whose name I can't remember right now off the top of my head, forgive me. But she was amazing. And there was a love interest there. They wanted me to have a love interest. And then I had to point out to them that I'm actually 25 years older than this woman, and I don't think it's cool.
Well, he was probably what? He was much older than that.
Right? He was over 300 years old. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
But Ra's al Ghul at the time I felt really uncomfortable. I think she felt pretty uncomfortable too. It's like, let's not do that. Let's not do the thing that everybody does.
So you talked about it.
And we talked, they did, but then they didn't know what to do with me. They left me dangling. It was like, well, we had this plan for you, but now you've nixed it. I don't think we know what the hell to do with you. So I I died twice, I think, in that show. It's the first time I've died twice. But it was great fun. I love to do family shows as often as I can, because that's where I come from. Star Trek to me was a family show. Deep Space was a family show. So that's my kind of acting heritage. So I did Primeval back in the day, and I did a bit of Merlin, and I did another show called Atlantis, and I did the Gotham, and all these are kind of in the same genre, kind of easygoing family shows you can sit down with your grandkids and watch. And that's kind of one of the things I always have to do as many times as I can.
That's one of the great joys of being a parent and a grandkid or a grandparent, is you can share the things that you love growing up with them. Yeah, I've got to do that a lot with the kids, with the 80s films and Old West.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the day that we move. I don't want to rush it, but there's a lot of Disney right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A lot of Frozen, Moana, a lot of that.
There's a lot of it. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. How many times did I watch those movies? Like The Lion King, I must have seen that 400 times. Crikey.
They're really good.
They're really good.
I could probably recite some of them at this point.
Absolutely. Finding Nemo is another one that was in my wheelhouse, because that was that age when my kids were kids.
They were young.
Kids. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
we watched I know you did the movie with Chadwick. Any Chadwick stories that you want to pass along?
I did get to meet him. That I could easily not have done, because I played such a small part in that movie. But he came along. We were in Philadelphia, and he came along. Filmed. I think it was Philadelphia. We filmed it for New York. To double for New York, because New York was just too expensive. But he turned up on a day that I had a massive prosthetic on my face, because I shot myself. Someone shot me in the eye through a peephole in the door. Don't want to give any spoilers, but I don't do very well in that movie. And he came with a bunch of people. So it was all very kind of slightly intimidating, because when a big actor comes in, they often come in with people. People, for some reason, hang around these guys. So he had a manager or something, and some makeup people, but they don't leave like other makeup people for other actors. They go and do their own job. They stick with them all day. So they're just an entourage. And he made an effort to come up to me and introduce himself. And I got the impression from that very brief meeting that I had with him that he was a gentleman. And I like gentlemen. you know, old school gents. I like those guys, and I respond well to people I believe to be gentlemen.
Yeah.
And I took a shine to him in that moment, and I didn't get to see him again, and then he passed away.
Yeah, tragic. Very tragic.
Yeah.
Is there a genre that you haven't got to do or haven't got to do as much as you would like to do?
I think, you know, maybe horror. I haven't done a lot of that genre. I wouldn't mind doing some of that. Not what is heads on sticks kind of horror.
No, we don't want gory. Yeah, we don't want
no, not that, but psychological, religious horror, that kind of stuff. I did a movie recently, not quite sure what it's going to be like, but it was because it was like that. To me, I love the the Omen, and the Poltergeist and Exorcist type movies. I really, because they literally scare the living crap out of me.
Yeah,
because it's possible, you know, there's a moment, it doesn't matter whether you believe in God or not, but as you go to sleep one night and you hear a weird noise, you go, maybe the devil exists. Hoof prints on your ceiling. It's like, oh my goodness, there are hoof prints on my ceiling. So that kind of stuff scares the bejesus out of me.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind doing that kind of. I love doing that. So like Gregory Peck in that original Omen movie. Remember that? Yeah. What a role! What a great role! Love to do that sort of stuff.
That's pretty.
Dracula. I wouldn't mind being Dracula. I think I might be getting a bit old now, but I think
Dracula you could totally do a Dracula.
Yeah, like a vampire.
I can see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple of my teeth are slightly pointy.
They save on the prosthetic.
Save a ton of makeup expenses.
Have you got a chance to see Dune yet?
I'm gonna see it. It's not out in Australia. I'm in Australia, guys. For those who don't know, I'm in Melbourne. But it's coming out, I think, on Saturday.
Oh.
So I am going to
really well done, I thought.
Yeah, but you know, I love those movies. I even like the original one, the not very good one. Yeah, because I'm just jazzed by that world. But I if you really like that, I like Brazil. That was the movie of that time.
I love Brazil. Really that's right.
Nailed it. That was the one that kind of competed with Dune. Yeah. And Brazil was fantastic. What a great movie that was. And I'm looking forward to this because Denise, the director, did one of my favorite movies of all time called Ensemble, I-N, a Canadian movie, which I saw several years ago, which totally blew me away. One of the best movies I've ever seen. One of my favorite films. And so he's doing this, boom, I'm in.
Yeah. He does a good job with it.
Yeah, I bet he does. I've read fantastic reviews.
Yeah, it's a tough adaptation.
Yeah, well, it's kind of similar to Foundation in a weird way because it's, it's a big world creation. You have to create a big world and similar themes as well, like the end of era, the end of empire, the decay of the grand idea, that stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah.
Sid, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Michael.
This has just been an absolute, but you are definitely worth staying up for.
Well, thank you for staying up. I know it's late there.
Just let on how old I am. No, I'm pretty jazzed up. We actually did. We made it. My son and I. We went to dinner. We came back and we did our episode on Dune, and then that led me right into talking with you. So it's been a good.
Perfect. I only wish I'd seen it so we could really discuss it because that's the kind of thing I love to do. I mean, if another time we could discuss the intricacies of Foundation and what happened and why they used, 3 different emperors instead of the one that was in the original in Asimov novel and how they kind of put it all together. It's fascinating to me.
I love the emperor's changing position during the show.
Yeah,
it's so well done.
And that they're clones of each other over thousands of years. And then there's a chink in the armor. I don't want to spoil it if people haven't seen it, but little anomalies appear in these supposedly genetically identical people. And it's whoa!
I know it's so
awesome.
Good.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you.
Well,
very
you're
much,
so
my friend.
welcome. Couple little things before you go. Do you have anything else that you're working on that we can keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I think I can say that I'm out here in Australia shooting a TV series that I think will be on Apple Plus in a year or so, or 6 months, whenever, called Shantaram, which is an amazing novel that they've adapted with Charlie Hunnam, who is phenomenal. So I'm working with him, lucky to be working with him and a bunch of other obviously talented actors, but I go through the whole list. It'd become like an Oscar speech. And so I'm doing that. And we have been away. I'm away for 9 months from my family because we're doing this.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's hard.
So yeah, we're shooting here and we shot in Thailand, and it's brilliant fun. I mean, it's amazing to do. You never know how shows are going to end up. You never know if they're going to be any good or not. But I hope it will be, because we are putting our heart and soul into this thing.
Apple's getting a pretty good reputation.
They're doing good stuff. They have some good taste.
Really good stuff. Yeah. Really good stuff.
It's a shame because it means another $15 a month on another damn streaming service, and I don't know how many of these I can afford, guys. Will you consolidate?
Yeah, right. You know, at some point that's going to happen. They're going to start eating each other out. It'll happen.
Yeah. Jeff Bezos or someone is just going to buy it all because they
any thoughts on Mr. Shatner going to space?
I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. You know what? He's earned his dues. He gets to do whatever the hell he likes, and he does amazing things for the rest of the world. He's been entertaining us. He's been, you know what? He's been self-deprecating himself too. He's been getting up in film and making jokes of himself.
Yeah.
That dude gets to go to space. I know that some people were a little bit pissed. Screw them. Dude, he's brilliant. He gets to do that. He gets to go up to space. He didn't exactly go and walk on the moon. He just went into space for 5 minutes. Give him a break.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Where can we find you on social media?
You cannot. I do not have any social media. I think I'm on LinkedIn, but if you go to my page on LinkedIn, the coolest one. I know. I do the coolest things. But if you go to my page, I actually say I don't do this. So I just did that just to be on something. Years ago, I did that. But
where does your fan club come in, though? Where do they go to, fan club?
Oh, they go to sidcity.com, I think it is. Might be .net. There's a thing called Sid City, and I didn't name that, guys, in case you go, well, you called it Sid City? But Sid is amazing.net. There's a thing called Sid City, and we've got a little community there who are fucking phenomenal, lovely guys, and everybody gets well looked after if they go and hang out.
That's pretty great. All right, last thing, if you're willing, if you could just give me you're watching to opinionated.
My what?
If you just give me you're watching to opinionated, so I can use that as my.
Oh yeah, you are watching to opinionated, and if you aren't watching, you should be.
Yeah, tell them.
Hey, damn right.
Damn right. Come on.
Damn right.
Thank you so much. This has been the absolute best time.
Thank you.
You did good. You didn't have any coffee or anything there.
I got my coffee. Well, it's my tea.
Oh, okay, yeah. There you go. I thought I saw one earlier. There you go.
Yeah.
What's that on your cup? What is it? You got
I found the cup in the local store here. It says barely awake. Yeah. Very risque. Very dangerous. Yeah.
That's exactly what we're expecting,
Yeah, well, that's a kind of nudity.
All right. Hold on one second. That was pretty amazing for me as a fan, and you guys know I'm a fan. You see me on here enough. I'm a fan. It's at times difficult to rein it in, but he was so nice and just so genuine. Such a good conversationalist. I love that. And he's very polite. I mean, he actually showed a little interest in me, which he definitely didn't need to do that. We could have spent the time talking about his stuff. I'd have been happy with that, but he didn't do that. That was terrific. And I'll say that, we've had 3 of the wonderful doctors from Star Trek on the show, and every single one of them has been just an absolute delight. They're just terrific. If I had to pick a favorite, I couldn't do it. Now that I've talked to all of them, unbelievable. Maybe I'll just say Gates McFadden, since I haven't talked to her, and that way I don't hurt anybody's feelings. Maybe I'll go with that. But they've all been just amazing. What a special career that he has had. And he named off some of the nerdy shows. Of course, I knew them. I wasn't going to bring up Primeval and Atlantis and some of the shows, but I knew. I've seen all of them. I could, if he wanted to give me an extra hour to go into all the movies, Clash of the Titans and Kingdom of Heaven, Reign of Fire, all that stuff, I could have done that. But he'd have been on here for like 2 hours, and that would not be fair. I was pushing it anyway, and he was very gracious, but it was enough. It was enough. Thank you guys so much for tuning in week after week. We don't take that for granted. I know I say that a lot, but it's true. We talked a little bit on the episode about our struggles, trying to put out quality material. And we had some really good guests early on, and we weren't very good. And we weren't happy with that. So we've worked hard to improve and to make this a quality show. So I hope you're seeing that. If you haven't done so yet, we could definitely use the help with our YouTube channel, MeisterCon Pod. If you could subscribe, we would appreciate that. That way you get notifications every time we have an episode. We usually put up 3 or 4 a week, plenty of material. You can also check out all 300 episodes at our website, meistercon.com. It's got audio and video. There's a couple hundred interviews and maybe 100, where it's just me and Brett talking about geeky things that we love. I guarantee you'll find a subject or multiple people that you're a fan of. So definitely check that out. It's got a terrific blog. Brett is just a fabulous writer, just terrific. And it's funny, it's geeky. Check that out. If we're doing anything live at the studio, it'll be on the website. If we're doing press at any of the conventions, we'll let you know that there. Definitely check that out, meistercon.com. So thank you guys so much. Thank you to Alexander, Sid. Really appreciate that. And until next time, bye everybody.